Welcome to the Cutting Time CNC Podcast, your go-to show for precision, efficiency, and innovation in CNC manufacturing. We're here to help you cut time in all of your CNC endeavors. Whether you're a CNC enthusiast, CAD/CAM aficionado, or into robotics, this podcast is for you. Join us as we explore cutting-edge perspectives on machining metal parts. Discover the perfect tools and streamline your production processes. Precision meets progress on the Cutting Time CNC Industry Podcast. And now, here's your hosts, Al Martins and Stephanie Bate.
I'm Al Martins. And there is a Stephanie Bate in the background, a pretty sick one, but she's kind enough to at least run the controls. So I don't officially have a co-host, but I do have a wonderful guest tonight that I'm looking forward to spending an hour with and getting through some really interesting points that Chris Nachtmann has to say. So Chris, welcome to the show.
See the light flash, you hit the pedal, and there's a split second where you kind of have to gather your thoughts. And by then you're at the 60 foot, and I look a couple 100 feet in front of the car, because by the time it registers to your brain, you're going that fast that you're there. It feels like you got rear-ended by a freight train or something. It's unbelievable.
Machining, you can put a lot of stress into a part, machining it. Good things is Gibbs Cam gives us the flexibility in our tool paths, gives us the flexibility in our feeds and speeds that we can approach the machining process how we want to minimize the stress that goes into the part when we machine it. These are a centrifugal clutch, so there's no transmission. Basically, it's direct drive. 10,000 horsepower is what drives these things, which is pretty impressive. And the clutch is an integral part of getting the horsepower to the ground. You can take one of our clutches that have 500 runs on it, and it is as flat as a brand new one.
We're fortunate enough to have been running CNC performance engineering clutches in our car for the last 15 years. And we feel like at this point, Chris probably has the best product in drag racing, and we're going to try to prove that this weekend. There's a national world record at the moment is held by a CNC performance clutch and another top fuel dragster. So it's these cars make 11,000 horsepower, and the trick is to get that horsepower harnessed to run through the bell housing, through the clutch into the tires. So the clutch is the most important part of the race car. It's also the most finicky, and we're just lucky to have a CNC build our clutches. Chris, as a clutch guy, knows what this car wants. He's worked on them before, and he uses a 3D Systems Gibbs Cam software to cut these things, and they are dead nuts precise. They come from him. We don't have to grind anything to make anything fit. It's basically bolt together, put your levers in there, and plug and play. Which is hard to find out here.
Why do we use Gibbs Cam? It's the best. It's the best product for our company. The ease of use, the format, everything about it is the best. Product mission statement says it all. Powerfully simple and simply powerful.
Well, that is probably the most sophisticated introduction I've ever seen. I love it.
That is an awesome video. But that really, I was smiling the whole time watching it.
So was I. You can't help it. It's just everything, you can imagine 11,000 horsepower.
Yeah. Those things, it's solid. Some of the numbers, the TV doesn't do those things justice. You really have to go to a race, and it's a sensory experience. Those cars now, half track is 660 feet. And one of them went 300 miles an hour from a standing start to the half track point this year. So CNC customer as well. So that was good. And I got to just say a quick thank you to Dom and Bobby Lagana. Those two brothers, those were the guys, their family car was featured in that video. And those guys have been supporters of me since day one. I still talk to them almost daily. They're both active crew chiefs. Those guys have done so much for me in this sport. I can't thank them enough. I really, from the bottom of my heart, Bobby, if you're watching, you're spectacular, my friend.
Well, that's brilliant. It really is an interesting sport once you get into racing, especially in the Carolinas. It's a really tight-knit family, really.
Yep.
And you start to understand the complexities of what it takes to make a car go from 0 to 60 in how many seconds?
They don't measure. They measure like 0 to 100, and it's under a second.
Well, I think an average locomotive has about 5,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
So this is quite dramatic.
Yeah. No, those things, they are unbelievable. I mean, I've been around drag racing. I mean, my dad had, alcohol dragsters back in the mid 80s. And, I've been around it really ever since I was a kid. And it is honestly, I never get tired of seeing it. I still get the chills watching the nitro cars run. And, here I'm 50 years old and it still just brings a smile ear to ear.
Of course. Yeah, I haven't had that opportunity to get to a drag race. I've obviously been NASCAR and ARCA and that world. It's a different kind of racing, different kind of sport.
Where are you located?
Well, I'm in Florida most of the time, but I'm here in Canada sometimes.
What are you kidding me? You're in Florida and you don't go to Gainesville for the Gator Nationals? That's like
what am I thinking?
The 300-mile-an-hour barrier went down at that track, man. That's come on.
But I've been to Daytona many times.
Get to Gainesville. That's like, that track's amazing. It's old school.
I need to do that one day.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole other world, but it really speaks to extremes, right? So, I mean, I don't think it doesn't get any more extreme, does it, in speed from 0 to a level of distance? Is there anything faster?
No, I mean,
I don't think even rockets are that fast.
No, the acceleration, that is one of the most powerful vehicles on the face of the earth. I mean, sure, you could go to Bonneville and those cars are reaching extreme speeds, but it's miles to do it. So, if you look at the course of what happens during the 3.7 seconds that it takes from one of those to go to standing start to 1,000 feet, it's so many things that have to happen right in order for the thing to just go down the racetrack. And that's including, the 9-man teams putting the things together, servicing the stuff, getting it ready, the racetrack surface. I mean, so many things, the crew chief group, and I say group, it's not one person, having to get those things, making the right calls for the weather conditions. Those guys are very underrated, for what they do to make those cars go down the track and put on a good show every weekend.
Oh yeah. Just been looking at it and studying it a little bit the last few days to prepare for our day today. And it's
awesome.
Really pretty incredible. I mean, not even a Tesla Plaid or these cars can compare.
No, it's, I know they're starting to do some electric stuff with drag racing, but, at the end of the day, man, 11,000 horsepower V8 nitromethane, it just, if the rumbling of the engine just running and the ground shaking when you're standing there watching it doesn't get you, I promise the nitro burning your eyes out will.
Oh, that's amazing. And is it true that they to get the tires hot, is it bleach they put on it, or is it what is that? Is that a story that they're saying? I don't know.
No, that's old school from back in the day. They used to do, bleach burnouts, fire burnouts. Honestly now, the way the clutch systems are and everything, they really don't even need to do the burnout. They do it as a part of the element of the show, but they're so short now because they actually, they found the burnout isn't beneficial to the run in any way. It gets the clutch hot. If they could just start it, idle it for a little bit, pull up and stage, the car can go right down the track and make spectacular runs, as they do sometimes when it starts to rain and they during the burnout, they have to shut them off. They back up. Basically, they just top it with fuel, fire it, and they send it. The cars will go right down the track. So that's more of an element for the show more than anything.
I see. I always wondered. I thought it was so that the rubber would get sticky and this type of thing, but maybe that's
No, the track, you walk on that racetrack the way they prep them now. If your shoe's not tied, you'll come right out of it. they glue it. They literally glue it. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, I didn't know that. All right. Well, Chris, anyway, I don't want to get too off on a tangent. We've got 10 questions. We try to get through them all. You've got a great machine shop, CNC Performance Engineering, and it kind of leads us to our first question about the background and inspiration. So can you share your journey to the CNC manufacturing industry and, what initially inspired you to pursue the field? How can you guide us down that road?
Well, I'm a second generation owner of the company. So my mom and dad started the company, which was Delta Fabricators, years ago in Torrance, California, and Gardena, a couple different areas there. And, my dad was really big into fabrication. And I can remember as a kid growing up, they have, 50, 60 employees. Obviously, in the 80s, 70s, 80s, being down there in Southern California, Rocketdyne, Hughes, Douglas, all the biggies were down there. Yep. So naturally, aerospace is the direction they went. After one of the shuttle incidents happened, it really hurt a lot of shops, down in that area. So, my dad was kind of, I think, starting to get over the whole LA rat race and everything. So he moved the company up to Central California, Porterville area, kind of near Bakersfield, and wanted to just kind of, run a lower key operation and kind of regroup. And, he finished out some of his obligations with the aerospace program once it got going again, but that was it. So from there, he kind of went into industrial manufacturing, doing parts for companies like Upright. They make scissor lifts like Genie lifts, a few other companies, some agriculture companies. And, I was always in and out of the company, always working in the summers, working on the weekends, because that's all I knew. And my parents worked a tremendous amount. So I learned that as a young age that, if you want to get anything in life and get anywhere, you got to work hard. So only issue I had is in younger and being around motorsports is, when my dad decides, he's over motorsports, well, that's in my blood now. And at different ages in life, you can walk away from things that you've done for a while. Well, I was just getting amped up and loving it because now I'm old enough to work on the cars and do stuff. So it was very difficult for me to work with my dad. And unfortunately, my mom was kind of the one always stuck in the middle of him and I not speaking and things. So he saw that I had a passion for drag racing and, just out of college, I was, working for him for about a year. And then he's like, you just need to go get this out of your system and go. So I went on the road drag racing. And I literally, my first 2 years doing it, I lived on couches and worked for hardly, nothing, but I worked with smart people and guys trying to forge their name in the sport. And eventually I worked my way up and got into championship caliber teams. Was lucky enough to work with one of the smartest guys I know and machinist, Alan Johnson, out in Santa Maria. And, that guy's a freaking genius, as far as tuning a nitro car and is a genius in manufacturing parts. So I was very lucky to work with a guy like that. And kind of once my cycle ran through that, I got married and was like, I've had enough of this years being on the road. And my wife wasn't too happy about it. So I decided to come home and went back to work with my dad. And unfortunately, as I got back to work with him, I could see he lost a lot of weight and kind of, he wasn't as normal at the shop at 3 o'clock in the morning deal and started turning into 7 turned into 10. And before you know it, Thanksgiving holiday came and then he never came back to the shop. And, a few months later he was gone. Yeah. So I was kind of faced with a decision. My mom, kind of looked at me and said, "Hey, I'm not gonna keep doing this without your dad." And honestly, I didn't know anything about running a business. The only thing I had going for me is I was a self-taught machinist, and I knew how to run manual stuff. I couldn't even turn a CNC on. And so she said, it's real simple. Either you can kind of take this and run with it and try to make a go, or I'm going to call the auction company and we're going to be done with this. So, part of me, was like, well, I do like doing this. And the other part of me was like, well, it's my parents' legacy that, they built, and I can't just see it go away to an auction company. So I was either going to try my hardest and succeed or fail. And that's the way it went. So basically, I had a dear friend of mine, John Rodak, who's another spectacularly smart person, taught me so much. First thing he did was took me to West Tech. I'm in California. And took me by the hand and said, hey, look, can you program? I said, nope. He said, well, let's go look at software, because you're going to need software or else you can't do anything. And my dad had stuff he knew how to use, but it was really old and outdated at the time.
Sure.
So, John helped me. I got Gibbs Cam, locked myself in the office for a week. And, 5 days later, I was making chips out of the machine, and basically took the manual on one of our CNC lathes, read it. And, again, the only thing that saved me in that was I am a machinist. Yeah. I knew how to work. I knew, work holding and cutting. Yeah. I knew that. And that's the biggest battle, because software won't teach you that.
No.
Then from there, we moved the shop to North Carolina, and I started developing product lines, and it's all, I bumped my head a few times. I'm not going to lie. And I've also had some home runs too.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about the go-kart behind you.
Well, my kids have always been into cheerleading, and my oldest daughter has always been an overachiever, and did a bunch, cheerleading for years, and decided after, some injuries and stuff, she wanted to try something different. So we got into go-karting, and that one behind me there, she had no natural racing ability. She got successful by practice and hard work, just like, I've done in business. And that kart behind us was special because it literally is the go-kart that won our first big national race ever. And it took 6 years to get to that. And we had sold the kart. And I told the guy, I said, look, if you ever want to sell that kart, I want first dibs to buy it back, because I'm going to restore it and it's going to go on my wall in my office. So the one thing I remember is the worst day I can have in the world. That's the first thing I see and the last thing I see when I leave. And it makes a bad day good when I think of the happiness that day brought with that go-kart and my daughter.
Isn't that great? That's a super story. Yeah, that's nice to have it right on the wall.
Yep.
Beautiful. All right, so let's get to number 2, technology advancements. So what do you believe are the most significant technology advancements in CNC manufacturing over the past decade?
There's probably be people that are watching, maybe with larger companies, that are going to look and right away they're going to say, machine tool technology obviously is leading the way. It's all relative to your company. So for my company, when I go to IMTS, like I'm getting ready to go to, I don't really go to the main hall first. I go to see the eye candy at the end of the show. Biggest things I'm looking at, and these are the biggest advancements I've seen, is cutting tool technology, number one. Go back, to solid carbide tools and coated tools and the different edge prep they're doing. So cutting tool technology has been huge, because, you can take a high-speed end mill, put it in a $500,000 CNC machine versus, a really bitchin', MA Ford, or, there's tons of them out there, that the cutting tool brands, with the right edge prep and right coating, and you can run circles around, your high-speed stuff. So in my opinion, cutting tool technology has been one of the greatest ones, and that's the stuff that I look at when I go to the shows. Naturally, the thing that goes right in line with that is the programming software, the CAM side. The stuff they're doing with the tool prep, tool pass now, tricoidal tool pass, the high-speed milling. There's been a lot that's, that you can do with your existing machine, just with the right cutting tools and what they've done with the advancements in the software. So I'm the type that always tries to say, okay, my investments are made in the shop. What am I getting the max out of the equipment I have? And normally it's always been, the cutting tool and the software. Now, I eventually will get to the point where, my equipment now is starting to be the limit, because honestly, some of the cutting tools, they're achieving greater feeds and speeds than my spindles and axes are capable of producing. So, now, that goes into, okay, cut, machine tools definitely, or, getting, 15,000 RPM spindles and, the linear guideway machines that are fast, all the look ahead on the controls now. So, there's a lot now that, the machine tools are elevating up to where the software and cutting tools are. So, obviously the technologies are adding to the machines, the multitask machining centers. I mean, now you have, where before a part may have to get handled a few times or go maybe to a lathe, to a mill. Now, it's beyond live tooling. It's full lathe capability and full milling capability all in one machine. So those are the biggest things I've seen in the last, 10 years that are just really, it's really taking off and growing at a rapid rate.
Well, it's interesting that you talk about tooling, and that's it. And even the way you handle the IMTS show is interesting as well. How you're circling around the edges before you get into the main studio, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
But tooling is hugely important, and you tied in, that new tooling can certainly do a lot of things, which require a machine tool that has either more horsepower or more spindle speed. But at the same time, you need holders that maybe be shrink fit or other things that, you're not using side locks anymore or collets anymore. You're using other things. But are you using that type of tooling now? Are you using shrink fit, or what are you doing on the machines in relationship to what you have now?
To be honest with you, shrink fit is something that I'm super interested in. I haven't found personally the need, because I feel, one of the things is holding size and surface finish are the two biggest reasons, to go to shrink fit. And honestly, everything we're doing, we're achieving good finishes. We also, our highest RPM spindle's 8,000. And like, if you look at, say, our Doosan 50-25-50, that machine's a 50 taper machine with a 6,000 horsepower or 6,000 RPM spindle. I do mostly titanium in that machine. So, the need to have, the ultra balanced holders and everything that comes with shrink fit, I personally don't need. I totally see it where they're doing mold making and everything. Absolutely. The one thing that I would like to get to, and I always look at, and this is simply from an efficiency standpoint, is getting into the tool presetters. That stuff to me is, obviously, having one on the machine is awesome, but even doing it offline while the spindle can be running and you have, backup holders and everything going with the tool presetter, that's pretty nice. But that investment, that one's
well, that's interesting.
That's a big one.
Why do you think a tool presetter would be that advantageous, the return on investment?
Well, again, that's kind of why, to me, I look at that, and that's why I don't own one yet, because, we go in, we touch off the tools. I can rip through, 15, 20 tools pretty fast and be done with it. If you really want to buckle down and really isolate efficiency, the nice thing with the tool presetter, if you're running a repeat job, you can load your tools, run your macro, while your guy's doing something else, getting ready to get the job going. It's coming in, running a cycle, touching the tools off, you're good to go. Or even if you have dedicated tools offline with your, Z-length offsets that have been touched off with a, tool presetter that's an offline one, you're ready to go. You enter in the numbers, you hit it. Even some of the companies like Technics, I know, are using QR codes that, the machine can pick up and read, and your length offsets are in there. So that stuff, if you're really getting your efficiency there, I'm not opposed to that. I still do it old school. I touch off, because that's, and again, it would take a lot for me to make that investment in the tool presetter. But me being an efficiency guy, I can totally look at that and say, well, hey, that's pretty slick. I would like that. That's more of a wish, not, a need.
I always wondered about that, because, now in theory, for a small shop, you'd have to have another guy doing the presetting, and then, they would typically send out probably a G10 output for the offset loading. And I always wondered the return on investment, whether it would be really worthwhile until you get to a significant number of machines and a significant number of volume to justify it. So interesting to hear your point of view.
Yeah, no, for me, again, that one is one that I don't know, maybe if I came across an offline tool presetter in an auction, I
Yeah.
could own one, or a shrink fit system for that, for that
Yeah.
matter. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's always stuff I keep my eyes, and the other thing at IMTS, I would typically look at for advancements is in work holding, because work holding is huge. So it's,
Yeah.
I'm always looking for, okay, hey, what's a better way to do this? What's a faster way to go from job to job?
Yeah. No. All right. Well, I guess, yeah, you're great to talk to, Chris. I can stay on a topic with you for a while, and I know the time is just flying by here. So innovation and above. So how do you foster a culture of innovation in your company?
Well, I'm gonna first say, using the words, foster the culture of innovation is that's a few levels above the size of the company of mine, but I'm going to break it down for you as simple as I can.
Okay.
The way the tree works is pretty simple in our company. I'm kind of the guy that does the quoting. I do the tooling design. I do the programming. I design fixturing, build the fixturing, go out, get the job ready for production, prove it, put the inspection processes in place, plus, run it, make sure everything's good before I'd ever hand it off. So
Right.
What I do encourage in my company, and I have a great small group of people right now, is I always encourage everybody, look, I'm doing the best I could do. I have a lot of balls in the air at any given time. So what I try to do is say, look, I've put the basics in place. This is going to go through this job. We should have no problems. Everything should be good. What I do encourage them to do is say, hey, look, if they're noticing, man, I wonder, why do we have an air cut happening here for a long time? Or why, why does a movement seem like it's wasted here? Or, man, we could be, while the machine is running, we could be checking this offline or doing maybe packaging, because this is the last operation. So I encourage my team to take the initiative to take a look around and say, okay, what can we do to, when this job is done, we can cut the time in half to where we can get on to the next job. So, and even during the production time. So I encourage my group for that. I make them feel like my door is always open. They can come in and say, Chris, I think, why don't you take a look at doing this? And I'll certainly always listen and say, hey, that's a great idea. Let's do that. I may say, well, hey, that's a great idea. Maybe, we could tweak it this way, or, well, maybe this is good, but if you look at it 3 steps down the line, maybe we need to rethink that. And the good thing is they're all comfortable, I feel anyways, coming to me and voicing their opinion, and they have a voice in my shop. So that's, for culture and innovation, that's the best way I think I can answer that question for you.
Well, it's a good one. It really is a good one. And having that ability to speak to you freely with some ideas and suggestions actually works for both. It works for them and for you, because in the end, steel sharpens steel, right? So, yeah. Okay. So, number 4, challenges and solutions. What are some of the biggest challenges currently facing in the CNC manufacturing industry, and how is your company addressing them?
Well, I mean, the first one I'll hit on, and I'm sure you've heard this 1,000 times, is workforce is a huge challenge right now. And when I say workforce, it's for a few reasons. I mean, our post-COVID workforce it's a little different. A lot of things have changed in the economy. A lot of work habits have changed. During there was periods, obviously, of shutdown happening everywhere. So that one is a struggle. And honestly, I've almost kind of had to look and say, all right, we tried hiring outside. I mean, I like to think that we do some pretty unique things here in my company to try to keep people happy. But I've struggled a lot with the last handful of hires I've had. So what I've decided to do, honestly, is take my group that's here, because they're the people that want to be here, and try to give them all the tools, anything I can do to make them better. And, that to me, if everybody feels like they have some skin in the game here, They have undivided attention one-on-one with the owner of the company. It's not through layers of management. I feel that, they have some pride in the company they work for. And you know what? I would rather compensate them properly for that. Do lots of little things. I try to do a lot of paid time off here, versus, a lot of companies may just kind of stick to your vacation and that's it. It's nothing for us to say, you know what, we got a 3-day weekend coming up. Let's make it, give you guys, Friday and Monday off, or maybe we knock out of here at noon on Thursday and it's paid off, the rest of the day, Thursday, Friday, and Monday, and I believe I want everybody to have that time at home with their family, spend time, doing what they like to do. And when they come here, they want to be here and work. So I try to invest in my group that I have. One of the other big things I see in our industry that is quite disturbing to me is the lack of trade classes at the level of education of maybe say high school. I was fortunate enough to go to a high school. They had a full-blown machine shop, and we didn't have CNC stuff back then, but probably 10 Bridgeports, 10 Morisiki type lathes, full welding department, foundry. So I was really lucky, and I'm telling you, I made sure I worked my butt off my earlier years in high school and going to summer school and everything. So by my senior year, I had all electives. So I had like 3 periods of machine shop, a couple periods of automotive, a period of drafting, and I really enjoyed that. And it's very disheartening to me to see that a lot of the high schools have gotten rid of those programs because, maybe everybody doesn't want to be a computer programmer. Maybe everybody, doesn't want to be a marketing person. There's nothing wrong with any of those fields. But at the end of the day, if you're making somebody who has no interest in that and you're pushing them to take that and don't give them options, well, they're not going to be successful and they're not going to be happy in school. So it's disappointing to me. And I feel that our industry needs that, because you need somebody to say, wow, this is really fun. I don't want to stop, once I graduate from machining. So maybe I find a shop to go work for, an apprentice, and build skills. Because, one thing I want to say is software is great, but everybody's got to remember all that software is a tool. It's no different than an end mill, an insert, an indexable cutter, a CNC machine. It's a tool. So if the person running that tool doesn't know what they're doing, I feel a lot of the mindset is now is, oh, so-and-so knows how to use Mastercam or Gibbs. They're a machinist. No, they're not a machinist. They're far from it. So I think that those foundation, the fundamentals need to be learned. And I feel that I was lucky enough to grow up in a machine shop, but I taught myself a lot, in the high school metal shop. And, one of the last things is a challenge that we're up against still is supply chain issues. So one of the things that, we're doing to try to overcome that is I'm fortunate enough, my company's in a position where I can just start stocking my inventory heavy, on certain things that are harder materials to get, the titaniums, the tool steels, forgings. I'm starting to have to lay out some money where I may say, oh, it's nice to have the checking account fat. Well, it's better to maybe have some inventory on the shelves, at least where if someone says, oh, it's going to be 6 months before you can get that, we ran out, and now we got to get a mill run. Well, at least, I can buffer that some by having inventory on the floor. Did you mute? There you go. Sorry, I lost you for a minute there.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I somehow something happened here. We're going on to question 5, sustainability and efficiencies. I was just commenting, I agree with you 100% that, education has failed in a big way to endorse trades. And that's across the board, but certainly in manufacturing. And it's all of North America. In Europe, it's still a big thing, but something went awry in the course of that portion. And I hope it comes back because we need that.
Agreed.
So sustainability and efficiency, what are the ways your company incorporating sustainability practices in your manufacturing process?
Okay. So again, that one is one that's kind of a big company question, but
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best to get through it. Obviously, just on the efficiency side, I mean, I think I've used that word quite a bit already. So,
Yeah.
For us being a smaller group, there's not a lot of redundancy in positions here. So, I do try to have a culture here and everybody understand, efficiency is key to us, getting through jobs, and really is the difference of us being, profitable or not. So, how we set up for jobs, how we do things, how we document things, it's all really important, for, ease of job to job and to the bottom line. The sustainability side, I thought about that question, and, I thought, I think as a small company, I feel we're doing our part like we can do. I mean, certainly are we getting into, energy credits and carbon footprint? No, I'm not Mercedes F1, and I don't have, unlimited, infrastructure and resources to put in place to tackle that. But I can say we do simple things. Obviously, our chips that come off the machine. I mean, it's all that stuff's recycled. And we break it up. Aluminum, steel. The copper on the EDM side. So, other things, we're very responsible in our disposal of coolant. I know you'll hear some people, oh, it's water soluble, just dump it down the drain. Well, we pay, Safety Clean a pretty good fee to come out and dispose of our waste coolant. And we make sure we have catch bins, we don't spill it. And, we have manifests for all that. So I feel we're trying to do our part there. Simple things like, we always try to get, material that's close to the size that we need for the end part. So we don't have to, have a lot of material waste. Obviously, if we can get through it without the issue of material not cleaning up, we'll try to order as close to size as we can. One thing we do, and I feel this is a, good, responsible, sustainable thing is for a lot of our race teams, we'll have a race weekend. We may have 10, 15 orders going out. Well, versus me sending 10 to 15 individual shipments to a racetrack, what we do is we actually consolidate. So we'll put individually, so, people are keeping their proprietary stuff sealed. We have, bags you can't see in. Components go in there. They all go into one box. We ship to the racetrack, and I typically have a team, thank you, Bobby, who takes my stuff and distributes it to all the teams, and everybody appreciates that. We actually can, a lot of times we can do next day air, but if you divide that next day air, over, 10 different orders, it's actually not so bad. So everybody gets next day air service at a ground rate or cheaper. Next day air I feel is a little bit safer to send. So it's one box instead of 10 boxes. So we try there. And the other thing we do, which is, it may sound pretty silly or cheap, is, we reuse shipping boxes, stuff that's come to us.
Of course.
We reuse those boxes. So, we're not buying boxes. They're not having to be manufactured. We recycle.
It's just, again, it's one of those things that have been lost in society. It's common sense. And the whole idea of a capitalist society is to manage that. And sustainability doesn't have to be driven authoritarianly by governments. You can, and most machine shops, most small machine shops specifically, are probably more efficient and more sustainable than the bigger shops. Yet they don't necessarily get the credit for it. And I think it's just a no-brainer. The more efficient you are, the more profitable you'll be, the better pricing you can be to your customers. You're just being a good neighbor, not just to your customers, but to everyone around you. It's just logic.
Yeah, common sense isn't so common anymore.
No, it's not. And it's just, you don't have to mandate sustainability. It is just good business. But anyway, that's a whole other topic and a whole other thing. But I thought it was really important, in looking at that, because sometimes we just take for granted that it's only the big guys who can use that word. Well, you know what? The big guys are the ones who have the problem.
Yeah.
Traditionally. Yep. So future trends. Number 6. What emerging trends do you foresee shaping the future of CNC manufacturing, and how is your company preparing to embrace these challenges?
I mean, I can tell you, obviously, one of the big ones, which, you know, is no shock to anybody, is, you know, the 3D printing. I've watched that. I think the first 3D printed part I ever saw was probably IMTS, maybe 2006, right around there. And, you know, I saw that and I was like, man, you know, if they ever get this, and they were printing metal parts at that time. And I was like, man, if they ever get this, this is going to change the whole industry. And, you know, I look at, you know, companies like Markforged. I mean, that really has my attention because, you know, I don't necessarily look at the 3D printing as being a huge thing for finished parts, because at the end of the day, you know, you hear companies like GE that, you know, go out and they're making turbine blades for, you know, that need to have internal cooling passages put in them. Well, yeah, GE's going out and buying the company that makes the machine, you know. Well, yeah, you know, so CNC Performance isn't going to go out and spend $2 million on a piece of equipment that can print that tight of tolerance and that advanced. That being said, with companies like Markforged, what they're doing with their different compounds and materials, you know, for us, the work holding side is what really has my attention, because, you know, making work holding, especially for, you know, more complex parts, it's tricky. So, you know, and it's time consuming. So if it's something that can be done on a 3D printer while you're allocating your time to something else, that's huge. So what I'm seeing, the advancements in 3D printing happening now, and the way the cost is coming down, you know, that future isn't even close to being tapped out. So I'm excited to see what happens about the future. Obviously, you know, your additive manufacturing, you know, same thing with that, what they're doing with that, you know, where you got your additive and subtractive. That's, you know, that technology is pretty awesome. Again, maybe not a fit for what my company needs, but, you know, the industry just doesn't evolve around, you know, the small lane that I'm riding in. So that technology is huge. It's going to keep, you know, being huge. One of the things, and this is a scary word, and, you know, it's funny, I love watching movies, and I was watching The Matrix the other night, and love that movie. And the scariest word I heard Keanu Reeves say was AI. Well, think about AI being used back in the 90s like that. I think AI, you know, I'll keep my opinions to myself on that technology, but being used for good, I think you're going to see some of these softwares, if they already aren't doing it, like Gibbs, Mastercam, which are going to start having AI programming, and you know, that's going to be. I think that's if it's not being beta tested now, it's got to be close to being here already, and that I think is going to be a huge one and a game changer for the industry. I mean, think about, you know, I know how long it takes for me to program a part, and I'm a small company. I'm me, myself, and I. Well, imagine a company that's got, you know, 47 programmers there. Yeah. AI stepping in. I don't know if that's going to be a good or bad thing. Hopefully, if they use it in conjunction or in tandem, I think it'll be a great thing. One of the last things you know, starting to see is the advancement in robotics, and on the collaborative side, especially. You know, my company is not one that necessarily has a need or a product that robotics would be a good fit for, but seeing what's happening on the collaborative side, I think for smaller companies, mid-sized companies, I think you're going to see, as the advancement of that takes off, that's going to be a game changer in smaller companies like mine.
Well, you've really thought that out, and I agree with every one of those comments. You know, and I think the AI side of things, I know in Tool Manager IQ, we have Fritz, we call him Fritz, as the AI component, which just allows users to go in and say, hey, you know, what's the tap drill size for a quarter 20? Or, you know, what would you recommend the feeds and speeds for this kind of tool? You know, yeah, exactly. Look, you answered so quickly.
Still old machinist in there. Go ahead, sorry.
Faster than the AI. Yeah. 207,000. I don't know. It really depends on your machinery handbook quotient, but absolutely.
Yeah.
Or was it an end drill? So yes, definitely. I think you're spot on there. The interesting thing, we'll see, where it goes, where should the tool start? Should you climb mill? Should you conventional?
Yeah.
Those are the things that I think AI still needs some, but it'll come.
I mean, look how, honestly, can you say, I think it's a conservative number, but can you say 2 years ago that you were hearing AI used on TV, on apps, Instagram, Facebook? Can you say that you even heard it used 2 years ago like it is now? I mean,
yeah.
It's crazy.
No, I mean, you even have, whatever, your maps program on your car that says, oh, you're probably going home now.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean I'm going home now? How do you know this?
Yeah. Or in my case, in the morning, you would route it. It routes me straight to Starbucks. It knows.
Take you in my coffee place.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress again. Number 7, customer-centric approaches. How does your company ensure that the customer needs and feedback are integrated into your product development and manufacturing processes?
Using big words again, but
yeah,
here we go. So honestly, again, just going back to how, my company it's a very small tree. That being said, we do have 3 key components of the shop, and it's basically, we have the motorsport side, which motorsport side, I 100%, I do all the design, manufacturing, everything myself. So like those clutches that you saw at the beginning in the videos there, those parts are 100% touched by me and me alone. That's not a great business model right there, but for now, it's what we work with. Agriculture is the other side. We have a product that goes in cotton ginning machines that, that dates back when my dad had the company. There was a customer he had, went to a second generation, ownership. Then that customer decided back in 2019 that, he was ready to retire. So I bought that product line from him. So, we have basically motorsports, agriculture, and then the last thing is just our industrial job shop side of the company. And, the biggest thing for me that obviously I have the most, time with in product innovation is the motorsports side. And what I do with that is it's old school. It's pick up the phone and you talk to your customers. And I can tell you that some of the guys I know that are watching this, crew chiefs, Dom Lagana, Bobby Lagana, Aaron Brooks, those guys are all very successful, brains in their industry.
Sure. Yeah.
I talk to those guys once a day at least. And all we're doing, like right now, we're doing stuff. They're getting ready to start their countdown to their championship after the U.S. Nationals in a month. So we have 2 races until then. Well, we're innovating right now for stuff that they can test, that can give them a competitive advantage going into the countdown. So it's constant. It's always, hey, what can we do? Can we make this better? Did you have a problem this weekend? Okay, well, all right, I'm already on a fix. Let's do it. Or they may come to me, hey, Chris, you might want to try this or try that. So it's an open dialogue that we have all the time. And that's why I feel that, not just being the owner of the company, but CNC Performance Clutches, we do have a clear-cut advantage because, we kind of are the only clutch manufacturer out there now, because that's what we specialize. That's what we do. And I always have an open mind going into a project with any of my crew chiefs. And we have a good percentage of the field out there now. Some guys utilize me more than others, but the gentlemen I mentioned to you, they lean on me and I lean on them. And that's how we evolve the product. And that's how we keep winning races weekend after weekend with our products.
That's incredible, because really, customer centric, you can't get AI to be customer centric.
No,
it's not going to replace that. And that is, again, an interesting thing, because how many websites or how many companies do you know that actually have a phone number anymore?
Yeah, mine I carry with me 24/7. I get calls Sunday night after an event takes place. My phone, if you're a racer calling me, there's a reason you're calling me, especially during a race weekend. My phone is on 24/7.
Yeah.
My wife doesn't like that, but it's just part of the business.
It's part of the business, but it really speaks volumes about your company and your character. And again, it's not common anymore to have that kind of centricity. So yeah, that really is amazing. And I think your customers got to be able to appreciate that level of dedication in a company and really a brand, eh? What is there an official brand, Chris? I didn't ask you that for your clutches. Is there a brand name for them, or what do you call them?
Actually, we just put CNCPE right on them. So it's it used to take forever. It was too much code too much memory on the control to have to put CNC Performance Engineering. So we shortened it down to an acronym. I charge the same price though, so it's still that's profit. That's how we lean it towards the company and not towards the customer.
There's part of your sustainability again.
That's it.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Number 8, global competitiveness. So what strategies do you employ to stay competitive in a global CNC manufacturing market?
Well, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. So
yeah.
the blunt answer to that especially with the overseas thing is we don't compete. I don't choose to compete with that. If I have a customer that's an industrial customer that comes to me and the first thing out of their mouth is, well, we're currently getting these made in China. The answer typically back is, well, okay, keep getting them made there, or why are you not having them made there anymore? And, because a lot of times, some of that stuff, people do that. And when we want to talk sustainability, the price that they're paying is not sustainable for the job because it never, if it's too good to be true, it is. So I stay away from that whole arena typically. And what I do is I've always done this since the very first time I've walked into the shop floor and taken a job on is quality, quality, and quality. Those are the 3 things that we operate the business on: quality. So I don't look at anything else. The thing that I want when a customer gets one of our parts is, it could be motorsports, it could be in farming, it could be in industrial. The thing that I want is when they look at that part and their first impression is typically a 4-letter word and a wow after that. And this thing is too nice to run, or this thing is too nice to put into use. If they say that, I've done my job, because I know it's going to be made to print and it's going to fit. So I stick by quality. And honestly, if we're looking at production stuff, which we do production work here, sure. I try to do my best on staying competitive on the price, but I will never bring value to a customer at the risk of the part not being made to my quality standard. So that's just it's never going to be value at the cost of quality. So I always just stick to that. And honestly, the way I try to make my money is I try to go in competitive, and then efficiency, pushing my cutting tools to the limit, saying, hey, maybe I could, add a few different passes here or there, or take some of this out. And that's typically, I'll always find, okay, the safe way is how I quoted it. The safe way runs the job just fine. And then the way CNC Performance takes it from, say, making, $80 an hour on that job up to $100 is maybe just different ways. I just sit there and stare at the job. I get feedback from my guys and say, look, maybe if we tried this, maybe if we did that, we could knock a little bit of time off this job. And honestly, if the customer's happy with the price they were paying, and I figure out a way to make it faster, better, and it's a benefit to CNC Performance, well, then I don't feel bad for making that little bit of extra profit, because I took the time and energy to do it.
To develop it. And whether you're using volume mill and,
amazing tool.
One of the other things I'm just wondering, when you're machining the part, obviously there's the efficiencies of machining it, and introducing unnecessary stress into the component by being maybe a little too vigorous in the cutting could actually create some problems, couldn't it?
Absolutely, especially with titanium.
Yeah.
Titanium is, I enjoy machining titanium. Actually, I just did
Nice.
another job, did some giant shafts that were made out of Maraging. And, people look at that stuff and it's funny. The job that I did with the Maraging parts, that shop has 80 machines. They're a huge shop that does work for SpaceX, a lot of big stuff. And, it's funny, as they said, hey, we're struggling with this a little bit. Which means, man, we really don't want to mess with this. It's nasty. So they farmed it out, and it's okay. I took it on, and I learned a lot actually running that job and just sitting there at night, 9 o'clock at night by myself. Okay, let me try this. Let me try this for speed. Let me try that for feed. Let me try this for cut. So it's all, you learn every single day here. So yes, what you're saying, like titanium. Yes, that stuff, man, especially with the clutches and as flat as we have to stay.
Yeah.
You got to be careful. And it's very nice again, where you have a good software that's user friendly. You can go in there. Okay, let me change this tool path a little. It's funny when you say volume mill, helical solutions, way back to the day when the carbide end mills are really hitting, like companies like CNC Data Flute. I always wondered, you looked at those tools, you're like, man, some of these tools, like the flute length on that thing, like it's a 1/2 inch end mill with 1 1/4 inch flute length. And, you're taking, max a 1/4 inch depth of cut, like back at the time. Well, now, when I started seeing, the advent of volume mill coming, I'm like, man, that's tailor made for the way cutting tools have been made for years. And you couldn't utilize all the carbide that you're paying for.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Well thought out, and I can see, if it's got your name on that clutch, people can count on it, and you can see the pride in your skills. That goes a long way. Okay, number 9, role of automation. How is automation impacted the manufacturing operations, and what role do you see it playing in the future of CNC manufacturing?
Automation obviously is huge. We don't really have, we have an Amada saw we bought for a specific job years ago, and I spent the money on that thing. That thing is fully automated. You basically just put the bundle of material in, and it runs lights out. That sucker was my ATM machine for years, just all night. It was printing money, and that thing was great. I can tell you a lot of the jobs I do here, automation is like anything, or even, everybody loves to say 5-axis these days. It's, it's all relative to the job you're running, So if it's a good fit, you do it. If it's not, there's no sense to have jobs automated if it's not a good candidate for automation, because honestly, a good efficient operator can have the job in and out the door before the automated cell's even up and running. So, there's automation has its place. I think it's going to continue to change the industry. And obviously with the issues that we have with the workforce, it's going to be coming to the front and being utilized a lot more. So it certainly has its place there. We just don't, for the particular jobs we do in the volume of the jobs, it's not a huge, it's not really on my radar. I'll say 3D printing would be more on my radar than automation at this point.
I think, Chris, to automation, maybe just as a side note, we think of automation, being used in mass production kind of situations, but I think really you've targeted a few things in automation, just in looking potentially at a tool setter, or looking at probing on the machine, or before the part comes off the machine, you are engaging with the part to make sure it's doing the right, is the right sizes. So you're probably doing some automation that may not in fact involve a specific robotic ideal in somebody's mind.
Yeah, true. Very true.
Right. It's, like you said, with the saw, you're cutting your blanks, you're doing all that ahead of time so that you can effectively automate the morning. So when you're there, you've got your production on the way. So there is, in a small shop environment, you're always trying to automate or create efficiencies where other shops will require potentially a robot or something else to be engaged in.
Sure.
All right, our last question, and it looks like we're going to make it.
I'll go quick.
No, that's okay. It's okay. It's not a hard stop. So, advice and aspiring leaders. So, what advice would you give to those who want to start a machine shop and make a significant impact in the CNC manufacturing industry?
That's a great question. I mean, I was talking to somebody today about it. The first thing I can say is, find your niche and be the best you can be at that niche. Like you don't have to be great at everything. You know what I mean? Because I feel that, and I've seen that as I grow and I start to get spread thin at times. Sure, it's easy to say, oh, I should just hire somebody to come in here and manage the place for me. And I've tried that over the years, but it's hard to find someone with the same passion you have. And, I'll admit my worst thing as a businessman is my inability to scale. But I feel that what we have works. So the biggest thing you can do is be good at what you do, be the best at what you can do. And, and that is going to make you successful. Have passion about that. Don't be scared of, of challenging materials. People say, oh, titanium. Oh, don't machine that, man. Jump in with both feet at titanium. I promise you, if you spend enough time doing it, you're going to be good at machining it. And, with any material. So I'm not afraid when people say, oh, man, this material here. I'm not afraid. Oh, man, let's go. Because I promise you, I have enough resources with the companies out there, and there's cutting tools made that will cut anything. So another thing I can say is keep your debt low. Don't go out there and put yourself in a bunch of debt because, as you might be busy right now, 6 months from now, you might not be. And there's nothing worse than a machine payments or payments that come around. Yeah. And, it's tight to cover. And it's like, well, okay, am I going to eat this week and feed the family or am I going to make the payment? So keep the debt low, take risks, for growth, but, always try to play out when you do it. I know when you're emotional about something, play out the worst case scenario. That's what I do. I look and say, okay, well, obviously, best case is this going to be successful and we're going to make money. What's the worst case? Because the worst case is what you need to prepare for. And you have to be honest. If the worst case is something that you can't handle that outcome, don't do it. And the other last thing I could say is, be dedicated. Nothing in life comes easy. Nothing worth having in life comes easy. So, put that time in, have balance in your life, but put the hard work in.
Yeah, that's definitely great points there. I think the word I get out of there is passion. If you have the passion to start a shop, in your case, you were faced with a tough decision at the beginning. What direction were you going to go? Take your father's road with aerospace potentially, stay in automotive, and you went with the passion. Yeah. And, you've been very successful with it. And because you were so laser focused, you're now where you are in the world of I want to say drag cars, but, in the world of that you live in with, and probably, there is very few who can touch the quality and the capabilities that you have. So that's what happens with laser focus, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's spot on, and that's the thing. Maybe I could have decided to take the aerospace route, but, one thing like any of that, it comes a tremendous amount of infrastructure you have to have in place. So it requires a lot of investment and
documentation. Everything's documented.
It's crazy. Source inspectors on site and everything you have to do, honestly. And at the end of the day, I love the space program. Don't get me wrong. I grew up around it. But at the end of the day, I'm not passionate about that. Yeah. I'm passionate about things that go fast on the ground. And and the biggest high ever, and I can tell you, I've won championships, a lot of races as a clutch specialist, because that's what I did for years. And I can tell you it's pretty freaking fulfilling being successful as a manufacturer and watching my cars win on Sunday. That feeling is pretty awesome. It really is.
Oh, I like I say, I've been to, quite a few races with, in ARCA with Thad Moffitt, Richard Petty's grandson, and it's nothing like the smell of oil and rubber.
Yep. Well, we need to get you to a drag race.
I'd love that. It's going to be a whole other experience, but it's something, very carnal. It's really enjoyable for sure. Well, Chris, this has been fantastic. And I'm I'm hoping Stephanie is still there. My wonderful co-host that's sadly a little bit disabled today. Steph, you think you could play that video again? Because I really like it.
Awesome. I love it too.
You got to love it as well. And then we'll say goodnight to everyone. Chris, has been great having you on board. Steph, instead of playing our sign off, let's play Chris's video. Chris, thank you for being on board with us. It was great to have you.
Al and Stephanie, thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it. I had a lot of fun.
Me too. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Cheers.
You see the light flash, you hit the pedal, and there's a split second where you kind of have to gather your thoughts. And by then you're at the 60 foot, and I look a couple 100 feet in front of the car, because by the time it registers to your brain, you're going that fast that you're there. Feels like you got rear-ended by a freight train or something. It's unbelievable.
Machining, you can put a lot of stress into a part, machining it. Good things is Gibbs Cam gives us the flexibility in our tool paths, gives us the flexibility in our feeds and speeds that we can approach the machining process how we want to minimize the stress that goes into the part when we machine it. These are a centrifugal clutch, so there's no transmission. Basically, it's direct drive. 10,000 horsepower is what drives these things, which is pretty impressive. And the clutch is an integral part of getting the horsepower to the ground. You can take one of our clutches that have 500 runs on it, and it is as flat as a brand new one.
We're fortunate enough to have been running CNC performance engineering clutches in our car for the last 15 years. And we feel like at this point, Chris probably has the best product in drag racing, and we're going to try to prove that this weekend. There's a national world record at the moment is held by a CNC performance clutch and another top fuel dragster. So it's these cars make 11,000 horsepower, and the trick is to get that horsepower harnessed to run through the bell housing, through the clutch, into the tires. So the clutch is the most important part of the race car. It's also the most finicky, and we're just lucky to have CNC build our clutches. Chris, as a clutch guy, knows what this car wants. He's worked on them before, and he uses a 3D Systems Gibbs Cam software to cut these things, and I mean, they are dead nuts precise. They come from him. We don't have to grind anything to make anything fit. It's basically bolt together, put your levers in there, and plug and play. Which is hard to find out here.
Why do we use Gibbs Cam? It's the best. It's the best product for our company. The ease of use, the format, everything about it is the best. Product mission statement says it all. Powerfully simple is simply powerful.